this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes as we recreate the autumn flame pattern and turn it into the summer breeze top. For this, we're going to be using cotton yarn, and I'm going to be using the original pattern, but don't worry, I've already gone and written the actual pattern for you guys, so we're making a size 2 in this one. So I have my pattern right here, and I have my gauge swatch. Now, the yarn that I'm using is right now a cotton blend yarn, and it is this beauty. Okay, now this is a very different yarn from the one originally called for. So without pulling my stitches, let me find. So just look at the differences. This one's more of a heavy worsted. This one's a truer worsted, or on the lighter side. And this one's a Z-twist yarn. This one's an S-twist yarn. So because I am changing I'm changing the material, because this is an alpaca wool blend. This is lovely and thick, by the way, guys. A true lovely winter yarn. And this one is more of a summer yarn. So I'm going from A to Z with this, basically. Right. This cotton, of course, will stretch differently. Although, to be fair, this original Z-twist yarn does stretch, but it just tends to go back to its shape. All the details for working with this yarn are in the pattern. So I'm going to put that to one aside right now, and we're going to focus on this, okay? Now, I'm going to be crocheting the size 2 in the Summer Breeze pattern. In the Autumn Flame pattern, I originally did a size 3. But here, I've just pulled out my swatch, so we have 16 stitches. 16 stitches here, and I'm going to continue working from there. So this is 16. We're going to continue with the foundation the foundation double crochet. This is 17, 18, 19. Don't forget that in the foundation double crochet, in order to be able to work your stitches into the previous stitch, you have to do that chain 1, and then you complete your stitch. So I'm just going to keep going with the foundation double crochet, and I will meet you back here when I have my 56. And here we are, guys. So I made my 56 foundation double crochet as the pattern calls for, but lo and behold, you see how this is actually the length of the completed waistcoat. So this is 18 inches long, and if you like that, you can keep going with it, but I'm trying to recreate the look as close as possible with this cotton yarn. So if we move it just a little bit, there we go. So up till here, that means that we have 45 plus 2 stitches, so 47, because our pattern states that we are working with multiples of 3 plus 2, and that will give us a closer look. So again, this foundation double crochet denotes the length of our vest, not the width, okay? So I'm going to rip back my stitches until I have the 47 that I calculated, and I will meet you back here. So that just goes to show you how easy the pattern is to adapt lengthwise. I'm down to my 47 stitch count. So row 2 of the pattern states that we're gonna, let's complete row 1, chain 1 and turn, and then we're gonna do a double crochet in the first stitch. We're going to skip 1 stitch and double crochet in this next 2 stitches. Okay, so we did 1 double crochet, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a front post treble, and that is a US treble and a UK double treble around the skipped stitch. So we're going to yarn over twice, and we are going to go around our skipped stitch. I also like to turn my work this way when working around. I just feel it's better. And there you have it, the most fascinating part of this stitch. Now we are going to time skip now, and I will meet you back here for the next part in our process. Now this is the right side of our work, okay? That's the right side of our work. This currently measures 14 inches, which is 1.5 inches less than this, but this has already been blocked, okay? This is what our work looks like after completing 4 rows, and now we're just going to keep repeating rows 2 and 3 until we have the desired width. So just remember that when I say width, I mean that we're going to be turning our work 90 degrees. So we're turning our work this way so that our rows count as our width and our stitches count as our length. That's very important to remember, okay? So just remember that this is a process. I'm showing you how I'm recreating a winter garment for summer. So I'm first going to try and work up to the 11 inches that the wool pattern states, and I will meet you back here when I've got that, and we're gonna block it, and we're gonna see what changes we need to make to have this pattern be functional with this cotton yarn and this weight of yarn as well. So I'm back before those 11 inches because I also want you guys to see and compare how our new yarn, or the new top we're working up, compares to the old one. So here I have 5 rows of the pattern, and if you can see, it actually goes over 6 rows of the original top. So you can already have a little bit of an idea of how my gauge has changed just by changing the yarn. And we can see that I'm matching it to right before I start my neckline, and it comes down to the waist. So those are just things that we need to keep in mind as we journey into this recreation of a winter garment for summer, because you may not think so, but the S twist and the Z twist are so very different that it affects, it affects a lot of what's going on here. Also, please keep in mind that when I say we change the yarn, we actually also change the material. This green one is a cotton blend, and this one is an alpaca blend. Okay, so I'm still not done with my 10 inches of, 11 inches of crochet. This is inch number 10. So what I am going to do is that I am going to finish this this row, And then I'm going to, you know, get to those 11 inches, see how it's looking, block it just to see how much it's going to block, if the weight affected the blocking or anything like that, and then we can move on to building the tanky top tank. I just measured it, it's 10 inches, but I'll do it again with you guys because this angle might be fun. Yep, so it's 10 inches there, almost. Oh, there we go. It's 10 inches, so that just means I need 2 more rows to get to those 11 inches. Right. Fun stuff. So what we have here, other than bad lighting and cups of tea, is a piece of blocking. Okay, and I wanted to show you guys what I blocked it to 15 inches. Now, once again, this is the length. The width is this way. Now, the 11 inches blocked 13 inches width-wise. Now, I have a feeling that these 13 won't fit as well as the last time. So comparing the layout, it's almost the same length as this autumn flame top without the rib border, but width-wise, it's the same. It just actually stretched more lengthwise than widthwise. So I think I'm actually going to make this bigger than the 13 so that it fits a little bit more like a tank top and less like a waistcoat, which is how this fits, because this is summer, guys. I want it for summer. And also the stitches here are so open compared to here. This one has been blocked already, guys. So yeah, now it's stuck here. So even though the blocked piece did stretch widthwise 2 inches, 2 inches, well, no, yeah, it went from 11 inches to 13 inches, I still want to crochet this cotton piece to the width that I want for my bust. So I'm a 33-inch bust, so I will take this size to a 33-inch bust. I just think that will be better all around for a fit with this cotton yarn. The as you saw in the video, the alpaca merino gorgeous vest fits me just fine. It stretches from the 13 and a half, yeah, the 13 inches to fit my it stretches to fit my bust, and I think it's a very flattering vintage fit, and I love that. Not for summer though, and I am intending to turn this into, you know, not just a waistcoat, but also a summer thing. So I'm going to go wind up more yarn, start the back panel, and once I have a front and a back ready, then I will come back here and share that with you, as well as how much yarn I've used to in the making of this front and back panel, because I have a feeling I can get away with just using 200 grams of yarn, of worsted weight yarn. We'll see. We'll get back to you. Just in case you were very afraid that I left you alone in this tutorial slash how I'm making this, The instructions for the pattern say to repeat the same instructions for the front panel as for the back panel. The changes come in when we do the shaping for the neckline. So I will meet you back here when it's time for those neckline shapings. Or in case, you know, I change anything of this cotton version along the way, but most likely when we have 2 panels. All right, so we are back and we have 2 panels, one front and one back, really, whichever way we want to go with it, because guess what? They're the same for now. So I weighed these, and these weigh 78.9 grams, so around 79 grams for each panel. I'm using a worsted weight cotton. I'll just remind you about that this is the yarn that I'm using. And I'm still using the 4.5 millimeter hook recommended in the pattern, but I am using a little bit more yarn because I made this longer. So I crocheted 13 of these of these front post treble rows. I have 13 of those, and I actually ended on a front post treble row just because I thought it looked nicer. Of course, where you end depends on your gauge because it's a given measurement. It'll take you to 11 inches, the size that I'm doing. So when I did the 11 inches, I blocked it and it shrunk back to about, I have my notes here, 13 inches in width and 15 inches in length was what I started with after I blocked it. And then it shrunk back to 12.75 inches in width and 14.75 inches in length. So we were talking about how much yarn I used, right? And we had said it was close to 79 grams. So basically, I just decided to go 16 inches. I actually made it 13 repeats, was about 14.25 inches, which when I blocked it stretched to 16 and a half, which would be ideal for me because I'm a 33-inch chest. So that is where we're at. This is the this here is the piece that I had blocked but added onto, and you can tell because I haven't blocked this little tiny section here. And this here is the, sorry, I got it backwards. This here is the piece that I haven't blocked, right? This is the old piece. This is the new stuff I crocheted. So this is the one that's fully blocked, and I took it off the blocking mats yesterday when it was dry. So let's measure it and see where we're at. And it shrunk back from the 16.5 inches that it blocked to. It shrunk back to 15.75. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm holding it here, and there you go. 15.75, almost 16. It's like right between the 0.75 and the 16, so that's what we're dealing with. But if you realize in the pattern, I do suggest that you don't cut your yarn. So my yarn is still attached, and that is because we've been crocheting this way all this time, right? Well, now we're going to turn it this way, and we're going to be working our neckline in then what was once our rows. Okay, that's where we're going to be working in. Front neck shaping, that is where we are. I'm going to take this panel to be my front. Now, this is what I'm going to bear in mind. I'm essentially here doing 16 inches. It's 3 inches more than the pattern originally, but 3 inches more than the pattern originally blocked to. So basically, Clarissa here just ignored everything she said about keeping in mind that because this pattern is going to fit differently, I should do more stitches for the neckline shaping than the original Autumn Flame pattern. So essentially I'm just voicing over what this Clarissa is saying because it is nonsense. It shall all be ripped back and deleted. So I'm actually gonna take you to what Clarissa actually did instead of leaving you here in this suspense and you looking at it going, why are you doing this? It's clearly not enough space for the shoulders. I know, guys, I know. So, cue director's cut. One day later, and past Clarissa here will now rip back all the neckline that she did following the Autumn Flame pattern. Not because those instructions are wrong, but because they don't apply to this Summer Breeze version we are making. As I've mentioned thousands of times in the video, we're working with a different material, a different yarn brand, and a different twist, so everything about this pattern has to change. Therefore, we're also changing the neckline because our shoulders do not, it's just not working, okay? So let's go and do that. Right, so originally I'd done 12 single crochets, and I am ixnaying that. And you might be asking, but Clarissa, how do I know? Well, you know because you put it against your body, and if you like the fit of it, you do, you stick with it, and if you don't, then you move on. So this is 13, 14, 15, and 16 I think should give me a nice look because we're gonna basically go up till here. So 16, to measure what will be left over. That is a good amount left over. 7.5 inches for my neck. Right. Okay, so now the pattern states that that's the row 1 is our single crochet base. That doesn't change no matter how many stitches you do. And I just pulled my stitch. Row 2 begins with a decrease in the first stitch. So the way I like to do a decrease is the invisible method. And I'm going to zoom you in so you have a better, well, that's as zoomed in as I can go, guys. Okay, so pick up the front loop. Just maybe if I hold it closer. Yarn over, pick up the front loop, and then the back loop of the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we have our decrease. Okay, so next we're going to do a double crochet in each stitch. And now for row 3 of the pattern, neckline shaping, we're going to chain 1 and turn. And I'm going to do a double crochet in each stitch, stopping 2 stitches before we complete our row. And you may be wondering where that is. Well, if we look at our work here, we're going to stop in this stitch because this is our neckline decreases right here. Okay. Oh, I need to attach yarn. Okay, so we are just going to continue along. And you know, the reason that I'm altering this neckline for this cotton version is because I don't want it to be as tight-fitting as the original garment. I want this more to be more of a tank top, as I've already said. And here we've got our last 2 stitches, so just invisible decrease over those. And here we would cut a yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew our shoulder seams together, right? Wrong, because I will later on decide to do a row of single crochet. So I will need to attach yarn again. Thank God for the magic knot method. But I am going to attach my yarn now, right about here, because this is 12 stitches, right? So let's say we're going to do 13, 14, 15, 16. So right around here. So once again here, we're going to have the right side of our work facing us, and we're attaching, counting stitches so that we are approximately 16 stitches away from the beginning in my case. So that is 1, there we go, 1, 2, 3. So like I've said previously, this original written pattern for the Autumn Flame was very, very yarn specific. It's assuming that you're using the yarn it was designed for, which is a Z-twist alpaca merino yarn blend. And you might be saying, but Clarissa, isn't alpaca super drapey? Well, not when you Z-twist it. It becomes a whole other animal. Pun not so intended. Here we go. So this will be 15 and 16, all right? So I'm going to chain 1 and turn so that we are going to be on the back of the work, but now that we know that this, where we attach the yarn, is our neckline, that's where we're going to be doing our decreases, all right? So I am going to double crochet up to that point, and I will meet you back here. So I'm going to attach more yarn, finish this, and meet you back here to start our back panel shaping, because this is our front line neck shaping, okay? Okay, so since the only thing I changed in my front panel was how many stitches I had running along my shoulder, then that doesn't really change much of the instructions of the back panel. So one of the things the back panel tells you to do is that we're also going to be working on the rows, right? But one of the things we're keeping in mind in this top row is that we're going to be working about 2 single crochets per each row, because remember, these are double crochet rows. Okay, so I have 26 rows total in this panel piece, so 26 times 2 would give me the stitches that I need. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, just like the front panel, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work 2 single crochets in this first double crochet, and then I'm kind of working into the actual stitch, and then the actual stitch hole right here, and then the chain 1. So that's how we complete 2 single crochets. All right, so I've done my 52 stitches because I had 26 rows. Okay, so once we've done that, we are going to turn, chain 1 and turn, and we are going to do a double crochet in each stitch. So in this row, there's no increases and no decreases. We're just crocheting, and I'll meet you back here for the shaping. Okay, so this is my initial shaping. This is 14 double crochets, which is what the pattern now states for you to do. And now I'm gonna cut my yarn and reattach it 14 stitches away from the next edge. Okay, so I'm gonna attach here and work my double crochets. And once we've done those 14 double crochets, we will have completed our back panel and we can join our pieces. And I'm just showing you my front neckline again because I added a row of single crochets after I had quote unquote completed the neckline, because to the front, by the way, because I just like the look of it better, and that's how it's written in the pattern for the front neckline. So if you want to add like another row of double crochets to the back neckline or a row of single crochets, more than welcome to. It won't really affect the look. It might bring the back a little higher, which is, you know, what you want. So now we are going to move on with the joining of our pieces. We of course want to make sure that our front panels are right sides facing, and we want to align our shoulder pieces together. And if you remembered to leave a long tail, then just use that tail so you can avoid weaving in an end. Now you'll just use your favorite method of joining for the shoulders, and then I'll come back here so we can join the sides. So for the side, what we're going to do is start by lining up our shoulder stitches. Our shoulder neckline shaping stitches. Just make sure you line up that first single crochet row with the back single crochet row, and everything's going to be nice and neat. Then we're going to take our tape measure, and we are going to at the very top of our armhole, and we are going to place a stitch marker to wherever we want our armhole to be. So if you want it to be 7 inches, you place it there. This will be stated in the pattern, by the way. I'm going to be doing between 7.5 and 7.25. It looks like more than 7.5, so I'm just placing my stitch marker here to remind myself that I will whip stitch up to this point, including that point. Okay, so I'm going to include that little stitch there. Now I'm going to join my yarn at the very bottom. So again, if you left a long enough tail at the very beginning, then you don't need to attach yarn, but I wasn't that smart. So I'm just going to attach the yarn and whip stitch. And there we go, one side is seamed. This is what my whip stitch looks like on the wrong side, and on the right side it just looks nice and neat because we're joining stitches, not rows. So now I'm just going to repeat the same thing for the other side, try it on and see if I want to make any changes. I'll meet you back here. Okay, we're ignoring that I have really crap lighting, but this is what I have. There we go, you can see it better. So you can sort of see where it lays just right on top of the belly button, but there's room here, and it's actually very comfortable. So I'm very impressed with the adjustments that were made too, because you can see in the neckline here, it's much closer than the original, but I am very happy with that because the original one just was a lot wider too. The neckline, I mean. We're going with this. So based on the video I just shared with you, we are keeping this as is. I'm very happy with it. Right now it's wrong side out just because I'm going to weave in all my ends, but also I may or may not pick up stitches around the neckline. I don't know. Probably not. And I'm gonna leave the sleeves as is because since we joined and it was the stitches, it looks finished, doesn't look bad. So I'm leaving those as is. I'm just gonna weave in my ends, and then I'm gonna pick up because I'm going to knit my rib. In case you're wondering, these are the needles I'm using, my knit picks. I love these. But before we move on to our needle goodness, which by the way, I am crocheting with a 4.5 millimeter hook, but I am gonna knit this with a 4 millimeter needle because I have a very loose gauge. If not, I would recommend that you do the 4.5 millimeter knitting needles as well, or whatever gauge the yarn recommends for knitting. In this case, it recommends 4.5 to 5 millimeter knitting needles. And with our crochet hook in hand and our yarn, we're going to find that corner where we joined, and we are inserting our hook right in that stitch, very last stitch that we joined into. And we are going to chain 1 to secure. Now I didn't really join right at the V, so that's what I'm trying to do here. And what we're going to aim is to have 2 stitches per every row. So kind of like what we did for the back panel. Well, not kind of like, we're doing what we did for the back panel and doing 2 single crochets per row. So if I had 52 stitches for the front panel, 52 stitches for the back panel. That is a total of 104 stitches, and that is the aim here, to pick up 2 stitches per row. So we're just gonna have a single crochet border party all around. So I've done my 52 stitches, and I'm going to slip stitch to the first single crochet to join. Wait, there we go. And I'm not going to cut my yarn or anything. I'm actually going to leave that slip stitch on the hook. And we're now starting with the danger zone. I'm kidding. So I've left that slip stitch right on my knitting needle, and that's going to count as my first knit stitch. So I'm going to go into the next single crochet and pull up a loop. And it's hard. And then I'm going to go into the other single crochet and pull up a loop for a total of 3 loops on my knitting needle. Now in this next stitch, I'm pulling up 2 knit stitches, and that is because knit stitches are actually smaller than crochet stitches. So since we don't want our work to tuck in too much, or at least I don't want that look, we are gonna every so often pick up 2 knit stitches. So I'm picking up 2 knit stitches every 3. This was the second and third, and now I'm going to pick up 2. Now of course you can compare with how other people do it and find a method that works best for you. Maybe you're a really tight knitter and you need to pick up more knit stitches. So for example, going into every other one and picking up 2. In the original knit pattern, I called for picking up a stitch in every crochet stitch, and that is what I did, but that's because I wanted that more tucked in look, and this stretches a lot more than cotton will. But for, like I said, for this one, I don't want that really tucked in approach. And then we're going to move on to doing a 1x1 rib. Okay, so putting this autumn flame to one side, even though she is lovely, I'm going to get back to picking up my stitches. Okay, so I've picked up the stitches, and now I'm going to start my knitting. Now, when I pick up stitches and knit, whether it's crochet or knitting, I always like to knit my first round. I just feel more comfortable doing that. So that's 2 stitches. Let me mark that as the beginning of my round. Okay. And I'm just going to continue knitting. So we're back to the beginning. Oh, I should have counted stitches for you guys, right? So I counted 40 up till here, so let me finish counting and tell you how many stitches I have in total, and then we can pick up. So I have counted 124, but the very experienced knitter or crocheter will know that counting to any number above 10 is increasingly difficult. So trusting that I have 124 stitches, let us move on. So I'm going to knit my first stitch and purl my second. I'm going to continue with the knit 1, purl 1 rib theme. So that's knit, whoa, guys. That's knit this and purl this, and that's how we're going to continue because my camera is flashing. So I will see you on the other side of this knit rib. I'm going to take you back here to the beginning, and here when I finished binding off, you know, you still have that loop on your hook. So what I did was I slip stitched to my first bind off stitch and I left that loop on the hook, and from there I kept working in reverse single crochet. Now I'm using a 4mm hook, which is the same size as the 4mm needles that I was using. Now when picking up crochet stitches in knitting, you don't actually pick up every knit stitch. You can pick up every other stitch. You can pick up 2 out of every 3 or 3 out of every 4, depending on how it's looking while you're working. What you want to avoid is the knitting scrunching in or flaring out, because you have to remember that crochet stitches are much bigger than knit stitches. So if we were to go into every knit stitch, we would get a lot of flaring out, which is, you know, if you want that in your design, that's good. If you don't, which I don't, then that's bad. So here what I'm doing is actually alternating between picking up 3 out of every 4 or picking up 2 out of every 3. I'm just alternating to avoid the flaring out, but also I don't want it to shrink in. I want it to keep level with my crochet. So that's a little bit intuitive. Now I've already skipped one and I've done 1 crab stitch, so I'm gonna do 2 crab stitches here. Oops, what am I doing? Whee! Sorry, 2 crab stitches here, and you know it's called reverse single crochet, and I'm just working right into the bind off, yarning over, pulling through. So that's my 2nd crab stitch. That means that if we look at our bind off border, I'm gonna skip this one and I'm gonna work into that next stitch. All right. You know, sometimes, there we go. Okay, and now I'm going to actually do crab stitch. I really need to organize my desk, but this is the last stitch here, right? So I'm going to snip that, and I'm going to, just going to pull through the loop, and there we are. It doesn't look like I've skipped any stitches. It's all very joined, and it's gonna look even more joined because I'm gonna weave in this end like so. This in this direction, okay? So I still have a little bit of yarn left over. I think this is about 10 grams. We'll weigh that for you. 12.3 grams of yarn. There we go. Amazing. So we got this tank top. Now this tank top, I've already tried it on. I'm a 33-inch bust flat. It measures 16 inches. Okay, but look at that stretch. There's lots of room. So actually when I put it on and measured around, it was 35 inches. So there we have the finished top. I'm gonna weave in these last ends and take some product pictures. And here we are, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this crochet journey that you've taken with me, because we've gone from one pattern, completely rewritten it to create this summer breeze top. I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it, so I hope you enjoyed crocheting this one with me. And if you want, check out my website for more crochet things and other adventures.